Welcome to RealGM Radio. On today's episode, we got Dieter Kurtenbach to help me talk about the Warriors and what they will do this offseason. Then we're going to get to some other playoff thoughts. We're going to talk about the Celtics. We'll talk about Giannis, and I'll ask him about the draft lottery. Plus, we've got the return of the Take Wheel. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow RealGM Radio on your favorite podcast app. Let's jump in. I'm here with Dieter Kurtenbach. He's a sports columnist for the Bay Area News Group, my former colleague from when I covered the Warriors. And we are going to start today talking about the Warriors and then get into some other NBA playoff storylines. Dieter, recording this the day after the Warriors got eliminated. Steph Curry never came back to the series, so we won't really ever know if the Warriors could have beat the Timberwolves. But did you see enough from this team when we got them all together, post-Jimmy Butler trade, that you think that they could be contenders next season?
Yes. I mean, when they're at their best, it is as good as maybe anybody's. It might be just a tier below the best of the best with, well, I mean, Boston doesn't really qualify under that statement anymore. When Oklahoma City's in full force, which who knows if they make it to the next round, but when they're in full force, I thought their best was better than anybody's. Cleveland's already out. I don't know if that might have been the separating tier, or maybe the Warriors were on that tier. But it's, I think, the wrong question to ask, and it's no offense to you, Wes. This is the problem the Warriors are running into. They saw enough to give them viable, actionable hope. They have a core that is going to be 36, 36, and 37 at the start of next season. So the idea that they can reach their best, that they can have it all break their way, is foolhardy. Jason Tatum's 28 years old, 27 years old. He just tore his Achilles. Like, luck does have some connection to age, and sometimes you just run into horrible luck. Mm-hmm. But it's not really horrible luck that Steph Curry's hamstring went on a hard drive after a 7-game series, or that Jimmy Butler, who fell so hard on his butt he should have been out for 3 weeks, never looked like Jimmy Butler. Not just Miami drag him to a, NBA Finals Jimmy Butler. That Jimmy Butler's gone. But just like the Jimmy Butler that we saw in the regular season, where it'd be kind of on and off, right? It was more good than bad, and it was certainly very positive, high IQ basketball. And then Draymond Green, who, you know as well as I, 2022 NBA Finals Draymond Green was getting benched. He was unplayable at portions in 2022. That team still won a title because Steph Curry was still the full Steph Curry. Steph had a lot more down games this year than at any point before in his career. The highs were still as high as ever, which is incredible. But the downs have to be factored into this. You have Draymond not really able to give you consistent output in the playoffs, and a Jimmy Butler who, if it wasn't the injury, then he was just really tired. And that's your core. That's what you're working with. Stack on the fact that they have a team of role players that don't know how to function without Steph Curry, or in the case of a Jonathan Kuminga, cannot function with Steph Curry. And you have a very strange brew. And so all of this I was hearing from the Warriors, and I can appreciate it, and it's in the heart of the moment. And, maybe with a little bit of separation, there will be some clearer thoughts, but all this, we could have done it, this hypothetical title nonsense that they were running through on their minds, like, that's just not even close to the possibilities of reality. It just doesn't feel actually that attainable because it requires far more breaks than any team is entitled to get come the NBA playoffs this time next year.
Great answer. A ton to get into with that. Full disclosure, I picked Minnesota before the series, not knowing whether Steph was going to sprain the hamstring or not.
And I wanted to, I wanted to, but when I watched that series against the Lakers, I saw a really bad half-court offense from Minnesota, which I think bore out up until the last 2 games. I saw a defense that would just turn off for stretches. I love their length. I love their talent. I think at times they can be a really smothering defense, Minnesota, but it would just turn off. And Chris Finch seems in and out. Now, I don't want to go in on Minnesota because they were unquestionably the better team. They absolutely kicked the Warriors' ass in that series. But the way that Steph Curry was getting to the hoop without any restrictions whatsoever in the first quarter and a half of that game. He was scoring a point per minute. It was hard for me not to imagine that that would have been good things for the Warriors. And it's why the Warriors maintain so much hope, even though it was maybe putting a bit too much on Steph, if we're being honest, that, hey, if we can just get this to 6 and we get that big 3-day break, maybe he can come back and an 80% Steph can get us to where we need to go. Again, it's all just sort of fanciful in what the Warriors wanted to do. I had the Warriors in 7, but that was only because both of those teams proved to be generally unserious come playoff time, and I thought that the Warriors' experience might be just that little bit more. But the second that Steph was ruled out for games, I mean, it was just like, how did the Warriors steal one singular game? And they really, outside of game 3, which was their best shot, and they faded away hard in the fourth quarter. I mean, specifically, Butler faded away hard in the fourth quarter. Outside of game 3, they never gave it. They never even came close. No. It was never interesting.
That was the one that got away. They needed that one, and they wasted. Jimmy Butler had 38 points in one of those games, and they wasted that too. But the reason I took Minnesota was, and I'm admitting my bias here, I just never believed in Golden State because of the lack of size. I just couldn't get there. I picked the Rockets, even though I didn't. That was the one where I really didn't feel good about it. I just picked Houston because they had home court. I picked it in 7. I'll take a half right on that one.
Is that how we do this now?
Yeah. It's on my show. Yeah, we can do that.
I'm sure the internet audience is equally as forgiving.
And then at the same time, I kept reminding myself I picked against the Warriors in every round of the 2022 run because of their lack of size.
Yes.
And I know that my bias, and I'm admitting the bias. I can't get over the size thing, and yet the Warriors got over it and won a freaking championship.
Well, this year's Wolves team has a lot of 2022 Warriors in them right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and this is a strictly narrative thing, but if Minnesota wins the title, and by the way, do not discount Minnesota possibly winning the title. I'm not saying they should be favorited. I think whoever comes out of the Denver,
it's wide open right now.
But yeah, who in the East scares you? Like, they can beat the Knicks, they can beat the Pacers, and I don't know who's coming out on the other side of the bracket, but I think they can beat both of them with OKC's vulnerabilities that have been shown, and I think a lot of people expected, but I gave them more benefit of the doubt than they've deserved to this point. Minnesota can absolutely do it. They have a grade A true superstar in Anthony Edwards, and I think that the most underreported, underdiscussed aspect of this past series with the Warriors was that Edwards figured out how to beat his own by himself, and it was something that his patience and strong decision making against the Lakers was talked about. And then he was able to carry that forward while maintaining a level of aggression and get my shot up that I thought was just perfectly balanced. Draymond called it beautiful after the game. Draymond says the truth a lot. And having Edwards being able to do that, getting Conley back into the ball, they were able to beat the Warriors zone with just ease. They had no problems whatsoever. And that is something that you think back to the game they blew against the Bucks couple of months ago. It was a huge game for seeding. It really put them in a bind. The Bucks just played zone in the second half, and the Timberwolves are like, oh, we've never seen this before. Like, we have no idea what to do.
We talked about it on this show. It was as if they had never seen a zone defense before.
And you're in Miami, so you live the zone defense lifestyle. You might as well be in Syracuse, New York. So, like, the idea that an NBA team can't shoot their way out of it, especially one that's at full strength and has a player like Anthony Edwards, it felt like it was inevitable that he would figure it out. But his ability to figure it out and to control himself and to not do the things that he did so often late in games this regular season, where he would just be like, I'm the man. We're making this a shoe ad right now. Like, I'm going to take over Kobe style. And everything would just fall apart around him because it was bad basketball. It wasn't winning basketball. The fact that he was able to switch into a more, let his complementary players do their work, be controlled, still get your shots up, still go out there and take what the defense is giving you, understanding that you're the best player on the floor. Being able to strike that balance is really hard. The Warriors were destroyed by zone. Chris Finch did go to zone late in the series.
Can I stop you on that point? Because I'm so glad you brought it up. I was literally talking about this last week. The next step for Anthony Edwards is figuring out the balance between, let me get my shot, aggression, let me get others involved, and making the right reads and in the flow of the game. And I literally said, this is something that takes years.
No. Not for him.
to get. And he was so far away from getting to that a month ago.
Mhm.
I bring this up all the time, and it's worth repeating over and over because it is staggering. His ability to learn and apply is one of a kind. It is literally one of a kind. I've never seen anything like it.
Yep.
He was not a great three-point shooter.
Nope.
He became one this year. Not just a great one, not just the best. The best pull-up three-point shooter by volume in the league. Just
without a beautiful shot, it should be noted. Like, it's a pretty line drive shot.
Yeah, and when asked how he did it, he was like, yeah, I watched videos of Steph and Clay and Damian Lillard. I tried their shooting strokes, and I decided I'm going to use Damian Lillard's. And I'm like, what do you mean you just – I didn't know that was a thing that you get to do. Why doesn't every other player in the league just do that?
Because they don't have it.
Because they can't.
He hasn't been touched by God the same way.
They asked him, okay, how did you learn how to beat doubles? Remember how he was complaining about how he doesn't like to play double teams because it's not fun or something early in the year, and then he figured out how to beat doubles? How? I watched Luka Doncic. Again, just doing this monkey see, monkey do, Kirby video game thing. I just took your power.
Yeah.
Wild, unbelievable. I think, and it's why I don't know how you define talent or whatever, and I don't even know if it's a worthwhile conversation. To me, Anthony Edwards might be the most talented player in the NBA just because of his capacity to learn and take and adapt and do it seemingly on the fly. You are so right. I'm so glad you called that out. It wasn't just, hey, let me make the strong read out of the pick and roll, Rudy Gobert on the short roll, Julius Randle on the short roll. I'm busting your Golden State Warriors zone.
It's the playoffs. People are gonna adapt to that. If you only have one kind of smoke, then there's going to be a counter, and you're constantly then having to adapt. You're on the back foot at all times. He's coming on the front foot.
Excellent problem solver. He is getting that, and you never think Anthony Edwards problem. So you think Anthony Edwards, athleticism, Michael Jordan, Adidas shoe ads, the movie
talker
that he was in, trash talker, personality, charisma, aura, all these things.
Yeah,
he's a problem solver.
So the difference between very talented players and great players is between the ears.
Correct.
I mean, it's not to say that there aren't guys who have a little bit more talent or to have this, but it's between the ears. It's what are you doing? How are you molding your craft? Everyone is given to get into the NBA. You have to have a requisite amount of clay. What can you do with the clay once it's here? And like a Jonathan Kuminga is a beautiful example of like, he's all talent. And how has that, and maybe it got a little bit better, but like, he can finish with the left hand on a drive. Like, he's 4 years in, right? He's the same age as Anthony Edwards. Like, look at how far away they are from each other.
Right.
Think about the difference. And you could say, oh, opportunity. You think Anthony Edwards, first up, I mean, yes, he goes to a team that has the number 1 overall pick. It's not like the Warriors didn't pick 2 in that draft. So the idea that, Kuminga's coming in, I know they won the title. You picked against him in every round. You know who picked against him in every round in 2022 as well? The Warriors front office and coaching staff. I mean, Bob and Steve were having conversations before being like, I don't know what we're about to get into, but this can't be good. They sucked going into that playoffs. And again, a lot of things broke their way. And this is why I say that this Minnesota team's kind of Warriors coded. So they get into the first round. They're playing the Lakers. The Lakers don't stand a chance. Not with Rudy Gobert hanging out in the middle, not with whatever that roster is. JJ just, goes down his leg a couple times in that series. First time coach, too tightly wound, completely freaks out. Thing falls apart for the Lakers. Minnesota takes full advantage, right? That's all you're asked to do. You get the Warriors in the next round. Steph blows out his hammy in the second quarter. Listen, that's not their fault. You play the team in front of them. But then, Jimmy has got nothing for you. He gives you 1 game in the series effectively. So you take advantage of them. And by the way, credit to them. Last year, they played around with their food in the second round, and then they were dog tired going into the finals. This year, they're like, that cannot happen. And they took care of business. They took care of it emphatically. Wasn't that hard to do, but they did it. Yep. And now we're going to see. But they have an number 1 superstar, a number 2 that is defying expectations, right? Very highly sought talent. Everyone thinks Julius Randle's, this great player, and now his star has fallen off significantly, and he's sort of a paperweight and a trade for Cat, and everyone's like, I don't know. Minnesota's just kind of eat this one.
I'm so glad I never sold my Julius Randle stock.
Well, listen,
it's taking off. It's the best thing going right now for me.
All it did was tank from the jump. So it's like, should I, sell my loss now? But there's some real Andrew Wiggins energy there. With Julius Randle right
Great
now.
Call.
And obviously different players. And then, of course, you have the defensive stalwart. I don't, bring up typically how many Defensive Player of the Year awards Rudy Gobert has because Draymond might be listening, but it's more than Draymond. So you have those 3 things and then like a pretty motley crew of other players, all of them very quality. Maybe Mike Conley's there, Iguodala. I don't know who the hell their Jordan Poole is. Dante DiVincenzo's just there. Like there's some stuff going on here, but it does feel like things are breaking their way. A superstar, defensive stalwart, and then a guy who's proving all the doubters wrong. It wouldn't shock me in the least bit at this point, but it all starts with Edwards, man. He's special. He's really special. And face of the league was a conversation. I get it. I don't know where we're going with that. I don't know if we should even get into it.
I want to put a pin in it because I actually do. I want to get to that because it's fascinating to me. But I want to go back to the Warriors part of this because something you hit on is exactly right. You could say, man, bad luck, hamstring, that sucks. He's 36 years old. That's a part of the roster building is the age of your players, the age of your star players, and how much you're paying your star players and what that does in terms of limiting what you could do financially with the rest of the roster.
Totally.
And they banked on 36-year-olds and a 37-year-old. And that's the risk reward, right? It's the same. You can't have it both ways. You can't look at the Warriors were not afraid of the Oklahoma City Thunder. They believed in a series against OKC that they could beat them. And
they're delusional, to be fair. I think OKC
I agree.
was almost I think OKC was built almost particularly to kill them.
Correct. Yes.
Like the Terminator.
Every single one of those sloppy turnovers is Lou Dort dunking at the next end or Jalen Williams. But they weren't afraid because they would say, oh, they don't have the experience we do. Okay, well, with the experience comes the age, and with the age comes the flimsy health track record and the risk there. Yes. So you can't have it both ways. And the Warriors tried to, and it didn't work. And that's not to say that Steph is going to get hurt every playoffs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's baked in to the way the roster was constructed. And it was baked in when you made the Jimmy Butler trade, knowing that he hasn't finished he hasn't finished a postseason in 2 straight years for Miami. Right. That was part of it too. That said, you're right. It was the wrong question to even ask. Because,
and I feel bad.
No, it was a good jumping off point. Look at us. But to me, it's not even you can't tell this to the Warriors, obviously, but I bet, one day, like years from now, they'd probably agree. It's not even about the championship chase right now. It's not about, or I shouldn't say that. It's not about the championships. It's not about the resume. It's about the moments. We're here for moments. Okay. And we don't want Steph toiling through a play-in tournament on the brink of elimination before the real playoffs even begin every single year. The goal for the rest of Steph's career is top 6 seed in the West. Legit playoff team. Let's get Steph on the playoff stage and let's see some magic happen because that's the only thing anybody in the NBA really wants. Steph's resume is infallible. You can't, it's all-timer. I don't know. I don't even know what another championship does for the resume. I don't know that it matters.
It makes it a very difficult conversation for LeBron stans to have. That's all.
That's fair.
Which frankly is motivation enough, right?
Yeah, that's fine. That's interesting enough. But to me, everybody just wants to see it, and I think the Jimmy Butler trade accomplished that. Now let's move. Yes. Let's move to the offseason because you mentioned Jonathan Kuminga. That's the big swing piece here. Restricted free agent. The expectation out of Golden State is that they are going to be looking at sign and trade options with Kuminga. Kuminga wants playing time. He should get playing time. It's obviously not the right fit. He's obviously very talented. Right. It's just change of scenery seems like the right idea. Anthony Slater reported in his piece this morning that, it's not a done deal that it's a sign and trade. I appreciate the reporting. It's also fairly obvious that it's not official because it's not official, but whatever.
Well, you know what? I get where you're going with that. I'm going to back Slater on this. And not that anyone's going in on Slater.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. I'm not down in the reporting at all.
It would be very Warriors-like, and certainly this is a murky scenario, right? Like it's an RFA sign-and trade for a player who is still you're selling his potential as opposed to the actuality.
And we know how Joe Lacob feels about him.
Correct. And for the Warriors, who this will be the biggest thing they do this offseason, they might wait it out. They might sign him themselves, hold on to it, knowing, hey, we can sell him to different teams better. We'll have a better shot of getting something better back for him, if anything back for him, if we wait until the trade deadline.
Good point.
Which then we're
what do you think they should look? What should they trade Kuminga for? What would be good enough to get off the Kuminga train for them?
I don't think Steve Kerr wants to be on the Kuminga train anymore. I mean,
Sure.
and now we come to this. Honestly, I think that's the bigger thing. Are you going to back Jonathan Kuminga or are you going to back Steve Kerr? And the Warriors, whenever push has come to shove, have justly and correctly backed Steve Kerr. He's made some of the bigger calls when it's come down to push or shove. Like, okay, he's our coach. We're not messing around with that. A lot of other teams, we know how that would go. But we also see how a lot of those other teams do. So I don't know. I don't think that anyone's going to get fired. But I definitely can see them forcing Jonathan Kuminga and Steve Kerr to commingle for another 6 months because they don't want to do anything that they would view rash, because they're still reeling a little bit from the Jordan Poole, Chris Paul trade that no one ever thought should work out, but they kind of thought would work out. And it's, again, and we're dealing with a very similar type player in Kuminga, whose life destiny is in all likelihood to be the best player getting up major buckets and major fantasy points for a crappy basketball team. And by the way, Washington, not an option because they already know. They've already played this game once and they've lost. Is whatever you want to say about Poole.
I did look at the trade machine. I'm like, Kuminga for Jordan Poole? Does that work?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
It was a fun thought experiment. Can I throw some names at you?
I'd love to hear them.
So obviously it would have to be a sign and trade, and it gets into April rules and whatever. I don't even know if these are possible, but we're having fun here. There's a couple of obvious ones that I know that you're going to say no to, but we're going to build up to one that I kind of like.
Okay.
DeAndre Ayton?
No.
All right.
That's an interesting thought, though, with Portland.
Walker Kessler?
Walker Kessler is a viability. There's a viability there. I don't think it's enough given, again, how much Joe Lacob likes it. I don't think, hey, can we have our in the rotation, out of the rotation Jazz center instead? They were talking about this dude. They couldn't put him in for marketing, but Walker Kessler's going to get it done.
That's the one where Danny Ainge has talked up Walker Kessler so much that I'm almost at the point of you're definitely trying to trade this guy.
Yeah,
that's the Ainge special. So
Walker Kessler, they've been trying to trade since they got him, and I don't quite understand why, because he is a good player, but he might just be a Plumlee. There's no nice way to put that, but he might just be another Plumlee.
Plumlee had a long career. Isaiah Stewart.
Wow, beef stew. Draymond and beef stew in the same locker room. I think we have to do it on principle.
If that's an option, I agree with you. It would be Kuminga in Detroit. Pistons fans might be like, well, we have enough big wings who can't shoot. And my response would be, you love these guys. Get another one.
Yeah.
You obviously are trying to collect them.
I don't, not to diverge too much from the topic at hand. Do you get the sense that Detroit's going to do anything? Or
no,
if they just
and they shouldn't.
I don't know if they should.
If they have an opportunity to upgrade the center position in a very meaningful way, I could see them going there. I think we kind of know what I love Jalen Duren. I love them coming out of the draft, I should say.
Same.
I think we kind of know what he's about.
Yep.
And it feels like they are short of where they need to be at the center spot if they're going to make a serious run here. And at this point in Cade Cunningham's career, having a legit pick and roll guy with him, I don't know. It has to be a start. They don't have to make their version of the Karl Anthony Towns trade. Maybe they just make their version of the Jarrett Allen trade or something, but something there. Maybe they do something like that, but I don't, it's hard to, I've seen people say Kevin Durant, Giannis, are they going to go crazy? I'm like, those guys are not going to let themselves end up in Detroit.
I mean, I don't know how much say Durant's going to have. I know that he'll have some, but
free agent 2026, he's got some leverage.
I don't know what's so unattractive about Detroit. And the man apparently loves moving. So what's the problem here? That's neither here nor there. I don't see. I would think that Detroit would say no as opposed to the Warriors saying no in that scenario.
Last one for you. Could you get Claxton from Brooklyn?
Claxton, because Cam Johnson is the name that's constantly bandied about, which I feel is a bit fanciful in and of itself.
And I don't know that it helps the Warriors.
They need a shooter. If we learned one thing, they need a shooter. They need
they need positional size, and he brings it. I think Cam Johnson is I like Cam Johnson fine, but the way he's talked about in Twitter circles, who was the guy years ago that every Warriors fan wanted to trade? Oh, God, what's the
Dan
name?
Marley.
Dan Moore. But there's players every once in a while that the
Yeah,
internet, like every fan base is like, we got to trade for this guy. And they all think
Most of the time, they're pretty mid.
Yeah, exactly. As you go on Twitter and it's like, is this guy going to be
Well,
an all-star game? Like why we keep talking about Cam Johnson like this?
I'll say this for the Warriors. They have roughly 0 two-way players outside of maybe Jimmy.
No, that's fair.
So
to me,
anybody
Claxton,
who
though,
can
would be the guy I would look at, because you could bring him on. You could switch everything with Claxton if you wanted to. He had a down year for Brooklyn, but everybody did. They were literally trying to lose games.
Right. How'd that work out?
I would bet on Claxton's upside there. And if you put him in Golden State, I mean, he'd just be like supercharged, can move faster Kevon Looney. Like I kind of like that spot for him.
Let's not blaspheme here, because you don't need to charge up Loon Dog, which, by the way, a free agent, and there's some trickiness
Gary Payton
there.
Second. Yep.
Well, Gary Payton has a player option, which if Gary Payton has a single lick of sense in his body, which I can assure you he does, it was picked up before he got on the plane back to the Bay Area. Oh, just by the way, I'll be opting in for the $9 million because
Thank you very much.
There is no lateral movement whatsoever left in those legs. The injuries have just great guy, smart player, useless in the playoffs. Useless.
What else do they need to do, the Warriors? To me, I think they're two major pieces away. I think they need to get a center who can play with Draymond and Jimmy on the court at the same time.
One of those centers that can shoot a three at a very high rate, but also defend the paint.
Yes, exactly. But also,
those are just hanging around. There's like 3 of them.
I don't know that they necessarily
$70 million a year.
I know Steve Kerr has been obsessed with finding a shooting center for a really long time, and they sort of found basically a shooting guard masquerading as a center in Quentin Post.
Yeah. I wouldn't keep pressing that button as we saw in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think that there's another way. I don't know that the center that has to play with Jimmy and Draymond necessarily has to be a shooter, but they do have to be mobile enough to screen on the perimeter and play in space. And if that center is a vertical threat, I think that you could create the spacing that you need. And then obviously you go to some staggered rotations after that. But I wouldn't be, if I'm the Warriors, I wouldn't be like, this guy has to shoot. Like they kicked the tires on Nikola Vucevic for the last 12 months. Kuminga for Vucevic doesn't make any sense. That's not a good value unless you're getting more stuff from Chicago. And then I don't know why Chicago's doing that.
Well, to be fair, Chicago is very much interested in Kuminga. For whatever that's worth.
Could you get Vucevic and another something? Because I think you're 2 players away if you're the Warriors.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if 2 Chicago Bulls are going to fill your needs there.
Correct.
That's like saying I need a meal, and you're going the back of the pantry.
How do you feel about Dalen Terry?
They're in a jam. They're in a real jam because, again, they have a team that makes some sense around Steph Curry. And then, and there was limitations there. Right, and Jimmy fits in, but like Draymond's useless without Steph. And everybody, you watch Podziemski in this series, and like he just didn't know what to do without the chaos that Curry creates. The biggest takeaway that I had, without Steph on the floor, the amount of shot clock violations that the Warriors took was incredible. And it's pretty simply because they're always told to, unless they have a perfect shot, hold it for a beat, because Steph will be open because of the way that rotations work. So you're almost open, or you're kind of open. That means that Steph is going to be super open, and he'll be coming around the corner here in just a second. So just wait. And then you're going to have the greatest shot of all time from the greatest shooter of all time. And Podziemski is still operating in that rhythm without Steph Curry. And so he would have these good looks. And by the way, in the playoffs, a good look is the best look you're getting.
Yep.
He'd have these good looks, and it wasn't just him, but Podziemski was the clearest example of it. And he would just hold it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't take it.
He was doing it a lot, to your point.
And it's like, because he had been trained. This is not on him as much as it is on the Warriors. He'd been trained to just go, oh, well, there's Steph. An easy assist, 3 points. Crowd goes crazy. Other team demoralized. What an incredible basketball play. And meanwhile, every now and again he'd remember, oh, I have to shoot. Oh, I have to be the guy. And then he'd actually have a nice little run. And then he'd go back to muscle memory of like, where's Steph? Well, Steph ain't here. And there's a lot of guys on that team that do that. Then again, there's the Kumingas and the Buddy Hields who, like, they don't want Steph around. They don't want to wait around for him to come around the corner. They want to take the shot themselves. They want to do the thing themselves. And that was nice to have when you don't have Steph. That could work for a second unit for a little stretch. It didn't work as well as it should have for the games in which Steph Curry didn't play. But those two don't meet. And then you have a bunch of players that can only give you something on offense, and then some guys who can only give you something on defense. And it's like they built a roster for everything, but that's not actually a basketball roster. Like it's essentially a baseball team that has nothing but platoon stars. What happens when the lefty starter is out of the game and now you got to go right-handed? And they're just like, I don't know. Like, we didn't see that one coming. It's like they change pitchers all the time.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot, how we sort of tend to mistake what versatility is in the NBA. And to me, it's when you have a bunch of players who can't play at a high level on both ends of on the basketball. Now all of a sudden we're talking about versatility, and we confuse versatility and lack of specialization quite a bit.
Yes.
And that's what the Warriors are. They are not a versatile team at all. Every lineup that they put out there against Minnesota was small. Every single one. Well, that's not versatile.
No.
What about that is versatile?
Not in the least bit. They also I like to sometimes go through the thought exercise of like how a coach would manage his team if he had unlimited timeouts. And Steve Kerr would use a timeout after every made basket.
Every possession. Yes. And just do the defense offense swap.
We would do defense offense the whole game over here. It would be excruciating.
Can I ask you one more Warriors question, then we'll move on? Is it time for Draymond Green to pull the Andre Iguodala and come off the bench? That series was a massive L for anybody who voted Draymond Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
That was a rough defensive series for Draymond. He is showing his age in more ways than the gray on the beard at this stage.
Yeah.
And the thought crossed my mind, specifically if they hold on to Jonathan Kuminga. Well, we can't play Kuminga, Butler, and Draymond at the same time. There's enough there that we know that doesn't work. And just, it doesn't work. We know that doesn't work. But Draymond coming off the bench, potentially as your backup center, and that could be the identity of that second unit, and you stagger it to where Jimmy goes off, and then you've still got Steph and Draymond on the court at the same time. I'm telling you, I'm not trying to convince you or me of it. No, it's a thought exercise.
It's a worthwhile thought exercise. Who's the center with the starters in that case?
It would have to be that, and that's the point. Is it almost opens you up to let's go get a real 7-footer, somebody's size, and we don't have to worry about the shooting component of it because Draymond's coming off the bench.
My concern is that Kuminga and Steph can't play together, and that when you play Butler and Kuminga together, Jimmy becomes very passive because there's someone who is willing to be an alpha, and Jimmy's like, I'm over it. Like, I don't need to be an alpha anymore. I got paid. This is my last big contract. Like, it's a full Jimmy Butler thought exercise. You know how those go. And that that's great for Kuminga, even though Kuminga still will get 2 spectacular plays and then just 3 losing plays in a row in all the things that will never show up in the YouTube reel. So people don't realize actually he was checking a dude at half court for no good reason. And then his man blew by him and then he just failed to rotate. And then, just didn't have a rebound a whole game, even though he's still standing under the basket every time trying to bring the ball up the floor so he doesn't have to pass it. Like, just a lot of weird stuff there. Again, why they should just move on, but they're not in a position to take any more losses in trades. Draymond for the bench. I get where you're coming from. It's not to say that that's not a possibility. I just don't think it's actually a solution to anything. Like, that's just politics at that point. And if the Warriors want to spend some time playing politics, like, play some politics this summer with your roster and shift some dudes out and get some new dudes in. But again, and this is, I don't necessarily pin this on Mike Dunleavy. Like, I don't think this is necessarily Mike Dunleavy's fault. He's been complicit in it, but it's not like on him. They have had to sell at a loss, unlike you and your Julius Randle stock, on a couple of things now over the last couple of years, just to change things. but they've had to sell at a loss. They had to sell Jordan Poole at a loss because they couldn't keep Draymond and Poole in the same locker room together. Congratulations, that's fun. I guess they won the Butler trade.
Mm-hmm.
To what effect, who's to say? But they won that one. Almost, they were force-fed it in a way. Like, there was no other option. You had to do it, and they had to give them the kind of, like, they didn't really feel that gung-ho about it because they were all in on KD, and then KD said no. So they kind of go into a second choice there. You think about when Clay left, they did a bunch of maneuvering, a bunch of, working around. Like, did it amount to a Clay? Not really. Probably not.
No.
And then, like Dennis Schroeder, that they're just trying. There's a lot of trying stuff, which I can appreciate. And did they lose anything by bringing in Dennis Schroeder? Not really, because he was part of the Butler deal. But like, they're playing like an arbitrage game here, which is not a very conducive way to maintain an excellent basketball team, to constantly sell things at a loss. We're trying to make the arrow go up, as opposed to just kind of letting it trail off. That's what people do in retirement. They just sort of let it trickle down to nothing, and then they die. It feels like that's the Warriors roster, except it's Steph Curry's career.
Well, we'll end on that bright note for the Warriors, I suppose. But let's shift gears to some other NBA playoff storylines. First one I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Boston Celtics lose Jason Tatum, devastating injury. Already talked about it on the show, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on it and what it means for Boston.
You guys got around to the fundamental NBA changing news here on RealGM Radio?
We did.
Wow.
That's how we do it, yeah.
I knew you were a pro, but that's impressive.
They win Game 5, force a Game 6 at Madison Square Garden. Dieter, can the Celtics win this series?
They absolutely can win this series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing they were down 3-1 in this series.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
They were outscoring the Knicks by 35 points in total in this series. There was that stat on the broadcast that they have led every game by at least 14 points.
Now, to be fair, when the Knicks lose, they lose. They lose real hard. Like, that's the Tom Thibodeau way, baby. Like, if we're going down just in a blaze of not glory. But when they win, it feels extra nice. They never make it uninteresting. There's never any snoozers with the Knicks, man. The Celtics can absolutely win this series. You saw the formula. They shoot a ton of 3-pointers. The variance seems to be swinging back. Jaylen Brown, by the way, NBA Finals MVP Jaylen Brown, is still a pretty damn good basketball player. And in a lot of ways, not having Tatum there maybe frees him up to do a little bit more. Now, is that a recipe for winning a championship? Probably not, but we certainly have seen him over the course of, 2 more games. How about like a 5, 6, 10 game stretch be the man? He's paid a tremendous amount of money because when he can turn it on, it's almost as good as anybody's on. Now, we do have to recognize that Nikola Jokic exists, but like outside of him, like Jaylen Brown's on is as good as anybody's.
What I liked in that game where they beat the Knicks was Jaylen Brown had the ball in his hands. The most assists he's had in a playoff game since the finals last year.
Yeah.
I think it was 8 assists.
Yeah.
And the offense took on more of his personality in terms of the drive and kick stuff. Whereas with Tatum, and Tatum was putting together a masterpiece performance, although the end of the third quarter was pretty iffy, whereas a lot of just like pull up threes and allowed the Knicks back into the game. And I didn't love it, but the stats were really good. It was his best game
getting a little
of the postseason.
soft. It was
starting to go downhill, and the Celtics lost that game not because of Tatum's injury.
100%.
They lost that game the same way they lost the other games. They bleeped the bed at the very end.
Yeah, they get a little high on their own supply.
They do.
And when it gets down to, this is why I don't think it's correct. And clearly it's been proven incorrect, not just recently, but I'd say over the last decade. People get very upset about the concept of, oh, well, you can't be a 3-point shooting team and win a title. Like, it's just laughable. It's like saying you can't hit home runs and win the World Series now. But in the same realm, in the regular season, there's really no crunch time, right? Everyone's just running open gym. They're just trying to get up a certain amount of shots from a certain amount of spots, and let's go have some fun, and we'll see who's winning at the end. Every now and again, you get a regular season game where teams tighten up a little bit, but no one's actually playing defense. In the playoffs, in the first round, like fourth quarter, defense is on. Second round, guess what? Defense is on second half. Get to the finals, Yeah, you might have a feel it out first quarter, but second, third, and fourth quarter, it's on. In the NBA Finals, you better have your defense on from the opening tip, or you're getting exposed. And the Celtics in this round, I mean, it's not as if the Knicks really have an off switch to begin with, but the Celtics in this round, they just get high on their, we're making shots today. That will continue forever. And they stop forcing the issue. And it's the same reason why Ime Udoka had to be hired from them in the first place. It's like this team doesn't have killer mentality. They have to constantly be egged on to go kill. And that all came with its own stuff. And I mean, Joe Mazzulla might watch The Town every night, but like the same problems persist to where they need to be reminded and prodded to go kill. And that's Tatum's temperament, makes him a very lovely guy and all that. Jalen is probably too cerebral to be constantly in kill mode. You have to have a little bit of a screw loose. And everybody else is just really high quality, high IQ role players. Like that's not their job. So,
and they chose to do this too, because they did have the guy at the screw loose, and that was Marcus Smart. And he was always, like, the talent wasn't there necessarily to back it up, but everybody called him the heart and soul of the roster. And then I was like, well, and then they traded him. Everybody was like, how do you trade the heart and soul of the roster? And I was like, well, isn't the biggest question of this roster the heart and soul of it? So they did a transplant, and they ended up going fully cerebral, and it worked. They ended up winning a championship last year. You can't take it away from them.
Yeah.
But when they face adversity and an uphill climb, and when they get punched, and as much as they won the championship last year, they never got punched.
Not really.
When they get a haymaker in the face,
they just do.
They wobble, and they have wobbled every single time. And I don't know that this qualifies necessarily. Again, Tatum went down with the injury, and that it was pretty late in the series.
But it was to your point of they were losing that game, and people, and there's just this deference given because the guy has a horrible injury that is going to affect the rest of his career, and he's a Hall of Famer already. He's a 4-time first team All NBA in a row. Like, it's locked in. Jason Tatum can never dribble a basketball again. He will, but like he can never dribble a basketball again. He's going to Springfield. Not a far drive. I've never made it. I'll never make it, but it's not a far drive. He would go. But they were starting, as you noted, to just sort of ease into the second half. Let's let the numbers do. The numbers will do the talking. And it's like, no, we're in a street fight right now. Right. It's on right now. And they're like, well, the numbers will bear out what the numbers bear out. And it's like, the numbers are going to bear out that you're going to lose because it's a street fight. Like,
the large sample stuff where the math starts to take over doesn't work in a finite 7-game series where you might not even get to 7 games, right? Exactly. You get a hot pitcher, hot goalie in the NHL, and you never know, right? Bobrovsky, the Panthers, has 57 straight saves, swings the series. That's what happens. But back to Jaylen Brown, though, I think the reason why I still think the Celtics have a chance in this is he's a little bit more traditional in the fact of the drive and kick. And he almost has to be, because his dribble isn't great. So he can only really do the 2 dribbles and then kick.
Famously not great dribbler.
Right. So it almost works to his benefit in a weird way, especially when he's playing in space. And then the other guy who's worth mentioning here, Derek White had a fantastic game. He's great.
Yeah.
Peyton Pritchard has been kind of let off the leash a little bit with Tatum out. He played the most minutes he's played in this series, got up the most shots he's gotten in this series, or the second most shots he's gotten in this series. And he's kind of that guy who, again, the talent isn't there, the size isn't there. You can't run your offense through Peyton Pritchard. But when you give him more space, he does tend to even play better than even he played during a 6-man of the year campaign. Like he could be a start. He'd be starting on most teams in the NBA, and he's a knockdown shooter. And I think he just created some problems for the Knicks there. And then, of course, the Luke Cornett of it all, I guess, is worth mentioning. But
should they double down on Luke Cornett? Should they make
White Howard? I think was the nickname I saw, which I loved.
Which is that?
White Howard. He looked like prime Rudy Gobert. I mean, he legitimately.
Yeah.
The Knicks got to figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to play Josh Hart the extended minutes because Cornett was just playing off of him the whole time, planted in the paint? They didn't know what to do. I still think the Knicks get the series because it's just really hard to blow a 3-1 series, but I'm not ruling the Celtics out at all.
I've seen it happen before. Now, typically it's the team that's up 3-1 has something catastrophic happen to them, but it does not having Jason Tatum does fundamentally change the tactics of this series. And sometimes, while it does not improve the ceiling by any stretch of the Boston Celtics, it does force them to be different. And different in a 7-game series can buy you a game or 2, and then 2 games in that Who knows where they're at in Game 7, right? You're at home. Who
Yep.
knows? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what New York's made of in that situation, really.
The interesting thing about this too is, as we've already discussed, Boston doesn't really perform well when they have something to lose, and now they have nothing to lose.
Correct.
And
Correct.
It
This is where the town comes in.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now just run out the front door and start shooting stuff. That's what the Celtics got to do now.
Whose car are we taking?
All right. Some other various NBA playoff time stories here.
Yeah.
I want to talk about.
There's just a decent series happening on the other side of the West bracket, Wes.
We're not even going to talk about it because by the time this comes out, it's only going to be a couple hours.
Fair enough. I just want to say
Denver
that
has been. Let's just hope it goes 7.
Yeah.
Is the NBA staring down a problem in terms of the ratings and the media and all that? Because this was the conversation I wanted to put a pin in terms of Anthony Edwards, face of the NBA. The biggest stars left. Anthony Edwards. After this series, it'll be either Jokic or SGA. One of them won't be in the playoffs anymore.
Yeah, neither of them are American.
Tyrese Halliburton, not yet. Tyrese Halliburton. Jalen Brunson or Jalen Brown, I guess, coming out of Knicks Celtics. Those are the star players left. So no Steph, no LeBron, no KD, no Luka.
Nope.
None of the established guys. Now, Jokic, obviously, SGA, those guys are established, and Edwards is on his way to being established if he's not already. But these are not guys who are topping the charts in jersey sales. I think Brunson was 7th, and that was the highest on this list in terms of jersey sales.
Yeah.
Is this a problem for the league?
Not in the least bit.
I don't think so either.
Okay.
I think this is good.
I think it's fantastic. One, the NBA is about to get all of the people who have whined and complained about the softness of the NBA. I don't think the Celtics are going to win it, so it would hurt my argument if they do. But all the people who complain about how soft and how they're going to get an old school series on both sides of the bracket. Now, the Pacers are a high flying, trying to do all this stuff team. I get it, but they're also hella annoying to play against. And
more physical than you think.
Way more physical than you think.
Yeah.
Particularly with their guards.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on there. The Knicks don't have a finesse bone in their body. I guess Karl Anthony Towns does need to be addressed in that scenario, but even that, it's the Knicks. But let's just throw it back. People jumping in off of nothing. People say, I don't watch the NBA, this and that. Those people have an opinion on Pacers Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they know who's on the Pacers or the Knicks, but because they knew who was on the Pacers and the Knicks in the 90s. And they knew that was some good NBA on NBC action. Okay, it doesn't really apply with the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. That is a tough branding exercise for the NBA. But you know what you do have? You have the single greatest basketball player on the planet who looks like he could be down the street at the local watering hole, and who every time you have on television, I know that he doesn't sell. I know that there's no marketability. Every time he's on television, you're laughing hysterically because this guy's just giving the greatest athletes on the planet the business while not jumping. It's hilarious to watch. It's incredible. It's like Steph Curry with a comedic twist. And then you get Ant, who there's just not enough good things to say about him. And we can get into, I'm sure there are certainly far more qualified people than us to talk about the PR ramifications of Anthony Edwards being the face of the league and what does that mean, all that. Okay. That's neither here nor there. He is someone who is an overtly brilliant basketball player with a big personality. What more could you want?
And an easy storyline to follow. It's a video game story. It's
100%.
Came into the league as the #1 pick, won Rookie of the Year, made an All-Star team, Olympics, was in the movie, and then started knocking out bosses.
Right.
Did the regular part
100%.
of it, and then started knocking out boss battles. Beat LeBron, beat Steph. It's a very easy video game to follow.
Doing it the right way. Oklahoma City's a tougher sell. It really is. But at least you can say, here's the NBA's MVP this season.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a small town team. There's a way you can sell it. But I'm ultimately over this need on Twitter amongst people who are either watching it or just not watching. I don't know. to try to sell the product as something other than the product. Is the basketball good? Is the basketball good? I think the basketball is exceptional right now. And I just watched the Warriors lose 4 straight games by playing terrible basketball. But I had enough on the Minnesota side to go and like, damn, that's a really interesting fundamental thing. I can understand that these are bigger money, bigger picture issues than, we should probably be dealing with the larger scale. We should probably be viewing it at a macro sense. I can appreciate that conversation. But ultimately, don't you just want the best version of your sport and let everything else fall into place? You want to, in this era, I'll say this. This is one thing that I do feel qualified in saying. People they have their antennas up so high for phoniness and for falsehoods. People are craving authenticity. And in this era of kind of a flat media landscape, everyone can get anything. What sells really? People turning their phones on their faces and yapping. Like it's an authentic thing. You feel like you're there with them. The most authentic version of the sport is the best game. That's what you're selling. You're still selling the sport. This isn't about personalities or Kardashians or reality shows or smile. This is about the best version of the sport. And the best version of the sport, should be noted, is a physical, rough and tumble, no nonsense, no bitching contest. I can't attest to the no bitching actually following through here, but the playoff basketball is the kind of basketball that I want to watch every night. I know it's not reasonable. I know I should not expect it. But when playoff basketball is played at an actual playoff intensity, be it just in the second half or for the entire game, that is a hell of a compelling product. And there is something about, I'll speak specifically to the American populace, something about the physicality of playoff basketball that brings us in even more. Football is still king. And I think about this a lot as it pertains to hockey. Everyone's like, oh, how does hockey sell itself? How does hockey sell itself? Be really good at hockey. Have really good hockey teams play really good hockey, and then convince people to watch that game when they can watch anything else on the planet.
And the parity helps too. Having the different finals
think that goes both
contenders.
ways.
It goes both ways. I think dynasties help draw in a casual audience.
Fair.
But just speaking locally, I mean, obviously the Florida Panthers are doing things that they've never done before.
I know I covered them.
Yes, you did. That's right. You're the rat, right?
Yeah.
I think just bringing in new audiences, and that kind of brings us to this NBA thing where you're gonna have, like, obviously the Nuggets won in 2023. They're not knocked out, as while we're having this conversation, but the Knicks haven't been there since '99. It's been a long time for the Pacers. The Celtics have obviously been there, but we expect them to probably lose this series. Yeah. Even with Jalen Brunson being a New York star, because he has a star in New York, they probably put a statue of him up in front of Madison Square Garden right now, the way that they love him. He is not, despite being in New York, he's not a national star, Jalen Brunson.
I don't think Anthony Edwards is a national star right now. I don't think
none of these guys are household names other than probably Nikola Jokic, who I think he's a household name, even if people don't recognize who he is or why he's so great. I think most people just know the name. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't even know if he's a household name at this point.
Not.
So Halliburton, same thing. It's gonna force the NBA to grapple with this. And if anybody in the NBA front office is rubbing their temple and wondering, oh man, I can't believe we're not getting Lakers, somebody else, or Celtics, somebody else, or whatever, you wanted this. That's why you designed the CBA this way. You wanted parity.
To be fair, did the NBA league office do that, or did a bunch of owners complaining do it? I know those are somewhat one and the same.
Yeah.
Because the NBA league office is nothing more than the lawyer's office for the team owners. But
Correct.
Who was it? Adam Silver putting his fingers on the scale and saying, "Hey, let's do it this way," or was it the owners themselves?
It feels like Adam Silver was a big driver of the parity conversation. Now, was he reacting to what owners wanted, or was he actually? Given how much Adam Silver adores the European soccer product and talks about it, I would imagine Adam Silver is pretty pro parity.
Classic European soccer with all of its parity, huh?
Well, I think he likes the regulations and stuff.
I would say this. They're gonna have to think a little bit more like baseball, at least for this year, because there is no clear dynasty with the Celtics too. Like, I don't know if the Celtics are ever getting back to the mountaintop post Tatum, because they have to do some pretty serious roster maneuvering here, because they cannot be a second apron team next year when they know they can't really compete for a title. Like, that's just roster malpractice.
They might not even be able to be a first apron team next year.
Right. So in all that, you're going to enter this age of parity, which again, I think a lot of people would say, oh, that's exciting. But at the same time, now you don't have a clear villain. And I think villains almost sell better than heroes in this day and age. You don't have a clear villain for everybody else to go up against. And, oh my God, if you could beat the villain, what a moment. And that's fine. You just need to be able to sell the brand names of the teams. And this is going to be a good exercise for the NBA, because they have been selling, I mean, overtly, when they announce the games, hey, you're watching this game, check out these other games we have going on. It's just player faces. They don't do that for the NFL. Yeah, they might say Mahomes or whatever. Like, they really don't do that for the NFL. Hockey, they kind of do it, but that's just because they're trying anything at this point. Baseball, they do it for like two guys, because those are the only guys that have brand recognition. So it really is about, it's Judge or Ohtani. Now, luckily, those guys are in huge markets, and so it maybe, one hand feeds the other. But like, I think you have to sell the Knicks and the Pacers, longtime rivals, rivalry renewed, high flying versus pounding, ground and pound. Nikola Jokic, greatest player on the planet versus the man coming to take his title. You can do it on that realm. You can do it with the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, like just laying low. No one's expecting them to come this far. Like, which surprise will keep going? And it's tougher with the Nuggets, but like, the basketball is exceptional. Every one of these games is must-see TV, and I don't think you need to be a hardcore basketball fan to see that, because it'll force the NBA
to just lean into the sport, lean into the basketball. Like, it doesn't have to be, David versus Goliath. It doesn't have to be any of this stuff. It's, hey, if it's Pacers Nuggets, that series is going to be awesome. Like, it'll just be fun basketball. If it's whatever.
You'll live if you don't have casual fans. But you know what? I would like to remind everybody, like, oh, they're not going to get the Warriors or the Lakers. They're getting the Knicks. Like,
possibly,
the Knicks are in the Eastern Conference Finals. You have won. You have waited so long for this. This is a win. Like, the Knicks are there. So it doesn't matter if it's Indiana and Oklahoma City and Minneapolis. It doesn't matter if all the other markets are small when you have the market, the singular market in America on the doorstep. So you're going to get some good eyeballs no matter what. And I'm so exhausted by the thought exercise, because there's no right answer. And even the right answer, which empirically was have the Warriors be so much better than everybody else that the entire league revolves around them. There's the Warriors and 29 other teams trying to beat the Warriors. Ratings were incredible the whole time. And all I hear now is people bitching and complaining about how, it's the Warriors every year. You guys kept watching. So, vote with your eyeballs. And if you don't want to watch this, that's fine. But I think the basketball's exceptional. I'll be glued to it every night.
We're going to do a speed round, because I really want to get to the take wheel, which is my favorite segment. And but we got two more things that I want to ask you. This is going to be the super speed round. One word answers for two questions.
Can I at least give you a sentence? I'll give you a sentence.
All right, you give me a sentence. Favorite Giannis landing spot?
Houston. Not personally, but I think that's what's best for everybody.
Is the draft lottery broken?
Yeah. Right. I think it's improperly disincentivizing tanking. I know that sounds weird, but like, yes, there is something to be said for. I know I still gotta give you one sentence, but
that's okay. We could go a little bit longer on this one, because
there is something to be said for not wanting to encourage tanking.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you play in a sport where you have 15 men on the roster and really only 8 of them are good, it kind of behooves you to do everything in your power to get young players to come to your market, because free agency just does not work to where, and maybe in time we'll see that, hey, money's money and there's not going to be that many places to get it. So you got to take it, Orlando and Utah and all them can get back in on this thing. But when you have teams that have, I still think there should be a place for tanking. What you should be trying to do is have teams tank for as little as possible. I don't think tanking is something you can actually get out of the game. All they're doing is prolonging the tanking for some of these teams by lowering their odds of the tanking working. And you end up in a Utah situation where they'll waste 10 years.
Right.
And then they'll finally hit the year that they have a crappy draft.
Now Utah has to tank again. You're absolutely right. And this is why I find it so interesting why this is such an issue for the NBA. You know where I stand on the lottery. Yes. I think we should get rid of it. I don't think it makes any sense. There's one league in the world, one sports league in the world that has a problem, a very public problem with tanking. And there's only one league in the world that has a lottery. The math isn't hard to figure out there.
Okay. Baseball is hot on its tail. That is more of a strictly fiscal issue.
Right. That's why I kind of qualified it as like a public issue with tanking.
Yeah.
Baseball's problem is the salary cap issue, and it's if we can't spend all of that, then we might as well spend none of it, and you kind of just go from there. But with the NBA, they are so obsessed, to your point, they're so obsessed with curtailing the worst of the worst teams. They're looking at it entirely the wrong way. The issue isn't having bad teams. You're going to have bad teams for one reason or the other every year. That's just the life cycle of team building.
You have uncompetitive teams.
Uncompetitive, bad teams, whatever.
No,
somebody's going to have the worst record in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to go 41-41 every year.
But it should be a Philadelphia situation where it all goes to hell. But then what did they do? I mean, they overtly tanked at the end to maximize whatever this season from hell was.
And that's the problem. The NBA is so obsessed with not having any bad teams that they're missing the fact that you've got teams that could be pretty good tanking games in the last 2 or 3 months of the season just to increase their lottery odds. The Toronto shouldn't happen. Heck, Brooklyn shouldn't even have happened. Like, none of that should have happened. It should have been Utah and Washington. You are at this stage in your team building life cycle. You are supposed to stink right now. Congrats. You stink. You're building. You've got a bunch of young players on your roster. You're playing a bunch of minutes, and you're going to lose a lot of games. Mm-hmm. And now, what do you have to show for it? A top 4 pick in a really nice draft. And instead, because of these dumb lottery odds, they end up losing. And then to your point, they have to do this all again, where you have another team like Dallas who shoots themselves in the foot, and they get rewarded with the number 1 pick that they didn't need, nor did they deserve. Correct. And so I say just abolish the lottery. And anybody who says, well, then you're just going to have teams completely dismantle their team and lose an entire season instead of 2 or 3 months at the end of the year where they're strategically tanking, my response to that is, okay, bet.
I mean, also,
Toronto's just going to trade Scotty Barnes for no reason just so that they can lose a bunch of games? No, they're not.
I mean, also, isn't that what a bunch of teams in the NBA are already doing? They come in uncompetitive. They might pretend as if they're trying, but they're not. They're not. I mean, the flip side of this is that you could also add in what baseball's done, which is, if you draft in the top 5, I don't know the exact number, but like the Colorado Rockies might be worse than my White Sox this year. My White Sox last year lost 121 games, and the Rockies might lose 122.
Tough time
because they've drafted 4th and 5th with their new lottery system. They cannot draft earlier than 10th this year. So, are they tanking or what? I understand it's a different sport and it's a different structure, but so what? Who is the lottery and who is the draft supposed to be working for? Is it supposed to be working for the players or is it supposed to be working for the teams? Because the point of the lottery should be to get teams out of the lottery.
Right.
Isn't that the point of the draft?
The bad teams get the good players. And if you don't think that's fair, then stop watching sports because it's what every league works. If you finish with the worst record in the NFL, you get the number 1 quarterback. That's how it works. And I'm with you. This idea. Yeah. I think the NBA has has a big problem with layering more stuff on where they should be doing is taking more stuff away. And while I hear that option, I've heard that option in terms of, hey, if you're you can't have a Cleveland Cavaliers situation where you're number 1,
it's a law on top of a law, and it's like your law was broken.
The lottery draft wheel. And I'm like, this stuff is crazy. Just get rid of the lottery.
To be fair, I'm pro wheel.
I hate the wheel. All right.
Well,
speaking of wheels,
I want to add this one thing.
Go ahead.
Let's talk wheels. Let's talk wheels. Sorry, it's my favorite bit ever.
It's time for the take wheel. I don't have a graphic. I have no imaging on this, but it's time for the take wheel. So it's the return of the take wheel. For people who don't remember the last time we had Dieter on, it's a very simple thing. I've got a number of topics Dieter gives me a random number. He tells me a number 1 through 10. I have an assortment of randomly chosen topics assigned to each number 1 through 10. And then when he gives me that number, I give him the corresponding subject. He has no idea what these subjects are.
No.
You have not seen them. I have not prepared you. I have given you 0 hints.
I'm starting to actually get a little nervous.
Well, the reason I hand them to you is because I know you can handle it. And you're the only guest on that I do this with. So 1 through 10.
7.
Airports.
Just was in one.
Okay. Brag.
I mean, not really. Airports. I could do the Jerry Seinfeld line, like, why is it that the airports, everything costs so much? I'll say this. We got to figure out a better system for what to do before the plane boards. We have to figure out some organizational system, a redesigning of the gate, perhaps, like a fundamental redesigning of the gate, because this slow zombie-like crawl towards the kiosk area, I don't know, even just the ropes, is unbecoming for all of us. Let's try to establish how, let's try to be clear about what the carry-on rules are, all that stuff. I get it. Everyone's going to be pushing the boundaries, this and that, put it into the overhead bin. Oh, this one doesn't fit this and that. Like, they should have that stuff all figured out, because I understand why everyone's creeping up. I'm doing it too. I'm like, I got to get that overhead bin space. I think we need a fundamental redesigning of the gate to better represent how anxious everybody is to get onto the plane. Because as of right now, we have people just sitting as if they're already on an airplane, doing nothing, not participating in the world. And then a bunch of people, again, just sort of encroaching slowly towards that door. Maybe more clocks, I don't know. But this is
I got
something...
on a plane once, and I can't remember where it was or what airline it was. I'll try to remember. It'll come to me, and I'll text you.
They call them gate lice. That's what they call it. The people who just sort of stand there waiting to get on.
So there's one terminal in Miami International Airport. It's at the very corner.
God bless you for using Miami International Airport, by the way. I once saw a goat in there. I'm not kidding.
Was it cooked or was it?
No, it was a full living goat.
It's great. There's a gate there's 2 gates in the very back corner of Miami International, and they're right next to each other. And oftentimes they're like literally right next to each other.
Yeah, and they're doing the announcements at the same
exact time for 2 separate flights.
Yeah,
and you literally have people going into the wrong lanes, and they do. Thank God there's somebody there to be like, you're not going to New York, you're trying to go to Jamaica, and then because these people would just be boarding the wrong flights, and they'd end up in the Northeast.
No,
right.
No, legitimately, which by the way, I'm pretty sure there's different, but like, this is another quick airport take. Clearly, they need to do a better job of designing this gate situation, because every airport has the same thing. Gates that are spread out way too far along a corridor, and at the very end, 14 gates in like one little small cul-de-sac.
It's like when you were drawing on poster board as a kid, and you would just be like, giant letter. Oh my God, I'm running out of real estate here.
By the way, and you're looking at gate 16, A, B, C, and D, and it's like, oh my God.
So I was on this flight, and they actually boarded the plane from both sides, which I thought was
both
genius.
sides of the airplane.
Yeah, you know how you have the
front
rear
and back,
exit and the front
east
exit?
and west.
Front and back.
Yes, they do that at Long Beach, so they can do it when.
That's right. That's where it was. It was in Long Beach.
It was at Long Beach because you have to take the stairs down.
Right.
Yes,
I love that. And there should also be a law, and maybe this has to be executive ordered. I'm not sure how it works.
Those are very much in style right now.
If you put more than one carry-on in the overhead before the plane is full, you should get ejected from the plane. If you get your backpack out of there, and here's the seats are assigned. Assign the storage.
Yes.
To the corresponding seat.
Yes.
Why aren't we doing that?
That's right. You would require dividers of some sort.
Yeah.
But
just like the stuff we have on benches.
Yeah.
The bus benches. Same thing. Same technology. It's out there.
What if we just made the seats a little taller? And so you had to like go up a step a little bit, but then there was a cubby under the seat in front of you that could fit a roller bag.
Oh, like stadium seating.
Kinda. Not to
the
where we have like one guy eating
kind of
farts.
weird.
No, I'm just saying we get rid of the overhead bin and we put the overhead bin on the floor.
Oh, so it's your private bin. So there's no confusion.
Private bin that's on the seat in front of you.
This is good.
And then, yeah, you can whatever you can get
or
there.
Or make the seats taller and you just go underneath you.
That's right. So everyone takes a step up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, like a bus.
Like a bus.
Like you would take a step up into your seat, and then there's a storage bin under your seat.
Yeah, but it would be under. No, it'd be under the seat in front of you.
Right, because
so then you'd have to. There'd be like a trough of some sort. It's probably a safety issue. Now that I think about it.
Well, unless you have something that latches down for flight, for when you're for takeoff and for landing. Okay.
What if we were to get the seats that were? This is probably going to be an issue of just space and weight. What if you put your bag in your seat? So you know how like
under the chair?
Yeah, you lift up the chair hole. You lift up.
Isn't that where the flotation device goes?
Well, no, the cushion itself is the flotation device.
Oh,
yeah, we don't need it. I mean, listen, you're already flying in this day and age. You should know the rules by now. I'm saying like go in. I'm just saying maybe we can configure the gates better. We can configure the airplanes better. And frankly, I'm looking at Boeing stock. They have a lot of incentive to make this happen. So you're welcome. RealGM Radio for all of your aviation talk.
Can I give you want to do one more?
Yeah, I want to do this for the rest of my life, Wes. I'm not even half kidding. This is
that was 7. So you've got the rest of the numbers 1 through 10.
Let's go with 2.
Burritos.
Yeah, I think that
one?
it's a fantastic one. I love a good burrito. I do think that we might be getting a little bit too cross cuisine. We might be mixing it up a little bit too much.
Are we talking about the sushi burrito, the famous sushi burrito in San Francisco?
And I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. That's not my issue. I'm not talking about people exploring the space of what you can put in a tortilla. That's an equal opportunity wrap. My concern is more like I've been getting a lot of pineapple with like Al Pastor, and it's too much pineapple at this point. I want just a tinge of the pineapple, and maybe you're going a bit too much. I'll say this. Here's the take. The breakfast burrito has not been fully explored yet by the culinary space. I feel like we're still sleeping on the breakfast burrito a little bit, and that if I could buy stock in any comestible in the coming years, it'll be the breakfast burrito. I don't know why. This
is good. It feels like we don't have a signature breakfast burrito. We have a signature cheeseburger, either locally or internationally. Everybody knows. You think cheeseburger, you're thinking in Bay Area, you're thinking In-N-Out right away. Boom. That's right. We don't have a signature burrito, breakfast burrito.
I feel like this is something that Chipotle could very easily do. And that Taco Bell opened for breakfast, but they went Crunchwrap. They're all out there, right? They got like a weird thing going on. Yeah. I don't know who they're even marketing towards anymore. It's like
they have chicken nuggets now.
Well, that's because they had to kill a bunch of chickens because of the avian flu. So now the chicken meat's really cheap. Because they had to kill the herds.
So we have avian flu chicken nuggets.
No, they have to kill them so that they don't get the avian flu. But now they flooded. So the eggs went up and the chicken meat went down. That is a constant. That's a good market. A business school for you right there. I didn't go. Huh. And so now everybody's got chicken. Chicken's cheap. So what are you going to do? Everybody's doing a new chicken thing right now. My thought is if Chipotle wants to actually start making some money again, because they've gotten some real bad PR, all of it deserved for making skimping on it and raising.
They have the Starbucks guy, right?
Well, who knows breakfast food?
Mm-hmm.
What were they doing? They were stagnating. Then they figured out, what if we cook these eggs in plastic and sell it to you for $6 a pop? And to be fair, gotten me a few times.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm saying, Chipotle: cook up some eggs, take those same pinto and black beans.
Yep.
Get your peppers, same thing. I mean, this is a very easy transition. Get yourself a
upcharge on the guac.
Guac. You already have the sour cream. You already have the salsa. Yep. All you need is some eggs and some crumbled up sausage. That's the easy one. That's easy. I like
my breakfast burritos with like a little bit of a potato situation in there too, but that's not hard.
Potatoes are easy.
Yeah.
All of this, none of this is going to add anything except for you need a little bit more storage space. So here's how I would fix Chipotle. Breakfast burritos. I'd have one.
You want to do one more?
Yeah.
Give me a number.
5.
Timothy Chalamet.
No one's on a better heater right now than the Chalamet. Do you think that him and whichever Jenner he's with are having deep intellectual conversations? Has he fooled us into thinking that he's smarter than he is? Or have the Kardashians fooled us into thinking that they're dumber than they are? Because there is a disconnect between my public perception of Chalamet and the Jenner that, like, I don't know how that relationship's working. Like, I know what he's getting out of it. She's hot as hell.
Yeah.
I'm not personally, like, I don't know, like, it's not my spectrum, but like, I don't see it with Chalamet. Not my type. But like, she might be into it. That's cool. Whatever floats her boat. I'm just wondering what they talk about, because it does seem as if he's really struggling this postseason to balance the true love of his life, which is the New York Knicks, with this very hot woman that he's spending time with that I don't think he can talk about the Knicks with. And I kind of feel for him.
I had an immense amount of respect for him watching that one game on an iPad while what's her name was at the Met Gala. I want to say, I'm going to say it's Kendall Jenner, even though it might be wrong, but I know that there's one of them is named Kendall Jenner. So we're going to roll with that for now.
She's very good looking.
Very good looking. Clearly they can't talk about basketball because she couldn't look less interested while sitting courtside for Knicks Celtics earlier this week.
And that's fine. You don't want to mansplain it either. Like, that's a weird spot to be in. She needs to be seen because that's her entire thing. Like,
I think it was one of those situations where it's like, this would be a great idea. Oh, it's like, hey, I'm going to the Knicks game. It's in Boston. I got courtside seats. And then maybe she was like, oh, I would love to go with you. And it's one of those situations where you're like, oh, that would be really sweet and fun, and I could bring my girlfriend. Cool.
Said that was a good idea.
And then as soon as you're there, you're like, this was a mistake. I cannot have as much fun as I wanted to have fun.
Totally.
In this situation,
I just don't know what they're talking about.
It's not basketball. To your point, I don't know what else it is. But it's definitely not that.
I mean, I think maybe they both have us a bit fooled that Chalamet is not as intellectual as he's been led on. But like, I saw him do an interview with Nardwuar. Like, that was like, you can't do College Game Day and Nardwuar and not make me think that you're kind of like some idiot savant or something.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Though I will say, what was the name of the Bob Dylan movie? Not good. It was a bad.
I didn't see it. I did not see it.
No, don't waste your time. A complete
I'm glad
unknown.
he didn't win Best Actor for it, because I have a problem with the winning Best Actor for biopics. It's like you're not creating this person out of nothing, and that's what I'm impressed with. You're just playing it. You're doing an impression of a person, which is very impressive when it's done really well. I just don't think you should win Best Actor for it.
It just wasn't very good. And the best biopic ever made, of course, is Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. So I don't know why they're bothering trying again.
My take on Chalamet is that he's genius for establishing himself as the Knicks guy, because just like your breakfast burrito take, I think there's a void for Knicks guy. And
Tracy
obviously
Morgan
it's Spike Lee.
Almost dying or puking.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's aging out. The generation is aging out.
Yeah,
Ben Stiller has snuck in
there's
here.
Clearly a Knicks guy, like a famously Knicks
Spike Lee,
guy.
But he's aging out.
Yeah, that's right.
And getting annoying. And Timothy Chalamet. Yeah, I mean, the complaint to the refs, it's like he's giving Luka a run for his money. Yeah. But Chalamet is just doing the chill Knicks bro version of this.
Yes.
And I think it's very smart on his part, because you become synonymous now with the big New York sports franchise, and I should say the cool New York sports franchise, because baseball teams aren't cool anymore. Yeah. The Jets and the Giants have never been cool unless Joe Namath played for one of them.
And hockey doesn't have that same kind. Like a lot of celebrities go to the Rangers games, but you can't really sit glass side. It doesn't have the same appeal.
No. And Timothy Chalamet is being seen. He's doing it from a variety of different, sometimes behind the stanchion, sometimes he's like by the scorer's table. He's doing it right.
How do you think Ben Stiller feels about this? Because he was ready to take over for Spike as Knicks guy, and now fucking Chalamet showing up and undercutting him.
Chalamet would be really smart to bring Ben Stiller in on this.
Yeah,
and they just sit together.
Answer. By the way, probably be good for his career. Stiller's putting out interesting stuff. I'm not sure if Severance is good anymore, but it's certainly interesting.
I liked it.
Yeah,
I skipped all of it and then binged all 2 seasons within 2 weeks. So it's a different kind of experience.
Yeah,
it just all blurred together for me. So I can't say which part of it was better or worse.
Give me 9. I just want to know what 9 is.
Movie theaters.
Yeah. Well, I got 2 kids under 3, so I'm not terribly familiar with what's going on with the movie theater scene these days. I will say this: that Minecraft movie might end movie theaters. It might be over.
Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it. I haven't seen anything. I get to watch half of a movie once a week for a month. Like that's how I watch movies now at my home at, like 11:30 p.m. That's when I get to watch movies. So despite the fact that I moved to a town in which I have a movie theater 3 blocks away that I planned on visiting frequently and did for many years, that's over now. At some point, I will go back. I hope it's still there. But apparently these, I don't even know what, Generation Alpha kids going crazy with their brain rot over the chicken jockey at the Minecraft movie and then ruining movie theaters. Like, it might ruin movie theaters forever. They might not have movie theaters anymore after these kids. And that would be a terrible, terrible tragedy because we're running out of good third places. And a movie theater is about as good of a third place as ever. Like, I don't know what my childhood would have been like had my parents not been like, just ride your bike to the movie theater or something with your friends.
Same.
Like, get out.
I was at the movie theater every other week, probably.
Yeah.
Saving up some money and then going to see whatever movie. And it didn't even matter. I saw all of them. I just didn't see this one. I'm seeing this one.
Yeah.
I would say this with the movie theaters, the complaining about it and getting the celebrities to back the movies, that's starting to get on my nerves a little bit.
You're not into the Nicole Kidman magic of the movies?
I'm really, when the only people complaining about the death of the movie theaters are the people making money on movie theaters, I think nobody else cares.
To be fair, it's always been a notoriously low margin industry.
Right.
People
don't go see we used to go see sock puppet shows to shake like in Roman times or whatever. People stopped doing it.
You used to have to go to a movie theater to watch porn. Thank God that's over.
Technology happens. You don't have to do this stuff anymore.
But I'll say this, like, people think, oh, the movie theater's dying, this and that. Like, we're not, don't think that this can't come for sports. Oh, well, the movie theater's too expensive. I don't want to go sit with a bunch of other people. These are very similar concerns. You know how much money they're charging for like 2 hot dogs at Chase Center? The whole family of 4 ain't going. I'd be better off getting the babysitter. Let's put it that way.
That's a great point. Dieter Kurtenbach, Bay Area News Group, the only one that could do the take wheel. Thank you very much.
Do it all day, baby.